For as long as I can remember, it has been my ambition to become an Olympian.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Underrated Podcast, a podcast where we discuss films that are underrated, underseen, underappreciated, and ones that have just slipped under the radar and passed most people by. I am Derek McDuff, the first of your co-hosts. With me, as always, are Ariel Ortiz.
Hello.
And Alan Torres.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going?
This week, since it is the Winter Olympics, the Olympics are back. We're going to be talking about a movie that is about the 1988 Winter Olympics, a movie that is near and dear to my heart. That would be 2016's Eddie the Eagle, a film about the real person of the same name, Eddie Edwards. This film is, of course, starring Taron Egerton and as Eddie, with Hugh Jackman as his trainer. It's directed by Dexter Fletcher. But yeah, so this was my pick. Obviously, like I said, I'm a really big fan of the Olympics. I'm excited that we are here having the Olympics again for the second time in like 6 months. I actually kind of originally was thinking about doing this movie when we had the Summer Olympics, and then we were doing our summer sequels. I was like, oh, I guess we can't do it. Then I was like, wait a minute, the Winter Olympics are just around the corner because of the weird Olympic schedule because of the pandemic. So I was really excited to kind of go into it and touch on this one. But I know, Alan, this is your first time seeing this movie. I know that, you're not a big sports guy, but I think I've gotten you in the past with some of these sports biopic movies. Tell me what you thought of this one.
Like I told you guys in the text, the first thing that I wasn't a fan of is I didn't see any adamantium claws, so that's one big disappointment. And I didn't see any cool, fancy British suits or, cool spy gadgets, but I digress. No, I dug it. It was super fun. It was a really good movie. I'm always kind of nervous about watching like biopics because things always have to go wrong, and I don't know. I guess I get really into the characters, so I go, oh my god, like I don't want anything bad to happen. And obviously, that this movie, nothing bad happened. Everything went well. Like so that was the fun. But what I really liked a lot about it was Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman, dude, just stole the show. I love their characters so much. Like I was all up for it. Like I loved their chemistry. Like Taron Egerton, like his facial expressions were so good. Like
that was my first note. Is just his facial expressions. So he's got the,
Like even I was like catching myself like he's like looking at the jump, and I'm just like, well, I don't know if he's gonna be able to do that one. Like kind of thing. I was catching myself doing that too. But yeah, dude, they killed it. I love their performances. I think what always gets me with these sports movies is I think you always pick the very sports are generally competitive, obviously. So I think that's what gets me is the competitiveness and like I just before we jumped on, I'm playing like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel on ranked. So, and like you guys could probably see me going like, come on, hurry, play your fucking turn, because I want to kick your ass, so I get pretty competitive. So I think that's what always grabs me, where I'm just like, yeah, and like, he's like, I want to be, the best ski jumper. I just want to like join the Olympics and I want to do that. And you know what? I really appreciated that because sometimes like, I know for some people they're like, oh, I need to win. I have to win. And that's completely fine. Like nothing wrong with that. That's a competitive nature. But I really liked his character just being like, I just want to be there. And sometimes, dude, that's enough. Like sometimes just saying like, hey, I was there. I did it. I competed and it's one of those things of just like the quote. It's just like the Olympics aren't about like competing or about winning. It's about like the struggle kind of thing. And it's not about the triumph. It's about the struggle. And I really like kind of like felt that. I was like really related to that because like like I had said before, I'm a big fighting game guy, so I used to go to tournaments pre-COVID, and honestly sometimes just being there, like not like I think I got 4th place once, and I was like completely happy with it. I was like, dude, I was here and I had a good time. And I think that's one of the big things that like a lot of people need to learn, especially when they're competitive. It's like, hey man, as long as you're having a good time with it and you like what you're doing, then that should be enough. Like, don't go too ham on it, but but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, the story, I love the story. The dad was an asshole. I was like, damn,
Yeah.
are you such a dick, man? Like your son's just trying his hardest, and like I'm glad the mom was like pushing him. Even I was like at one point where I was like, bro, you got this, you got this. This movie really made me fall in love with the characters. So that's probably one of my biggest highlights is like, just they really get you in that aspect of like you fall in love with the characters. I mean, obviously their performances, like I said, and the one of my favorite parts was around the end of the movie where he's gonna do the 90-meter jump, and I don't know if they got like Robert Zemeckis or something for like tension or something, because that last scene was so tense. Like I remember I was getting so nervous. Like he's going up the ski jump, and I'm just like, oh man, was this still gonna like? I'm like terrified he's gonna break his bones. It felt like the same tension you feel at the big climactic scene in Back to the Future. So that's why I'm like saying like, was Robert Zemeckis on this part? Because damn, that was some great like suspense and tension, and like I loved even that one real quick of the other competitor, like the pro ski
Maddie.
jumper. Huh?
Maddie.
Maddie. I think so.
Flying
Eddie. I was like,
Finn.
oh, that's him. Oh yeah, the flying fin. Yeah, like he was like, oh, it doesn't matter. We're only here for us. Like he's like, if I wanted to try my best, I don't care if I would get last place, but he's like, I'm gonna get first place anyways because I'm so good, kind of thing. But I love that even he was like recognizing Eddie's like, hey man, you're here because you give a shit. Like you're gonna try your best, even if you're bad at it. Like you're still trying, giving your all. So yeah, it was a really feel good movie. Like I felt great. Like like when it finished, like I'm like, yeah, you're cheering with them, and like I got my jacket ready to go too. So I was like, yo, I'm putting my jacket on for Eddie right now. So yeah, man, I totally dug it. Hugh Jackman, man, just fucking kills it. Like as soon as he showed up on screen, I was like, there's my man. Look at him. Gorgeous, handsome as fuck, just killing it. But yeah, man, I dug the hell out of it. I loved it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, I love Taron Egerton, and I just like I've loved pretty much everything that he's been in, like ever since seeing him at first in Kingsman, and like the injustice that he did not at least get nominated for an Oscar, and then what's his name got an Oscar for Freddie Mercury, where he knocked it out of the park with Elton John in Rocket Man. It's still a travesty. But this movie was such a great like late 80s 90s feel of a sports movie, and it was a return to that form, and like that's what, at least for me, I'm sure at least Derek got us to love these kind of movies, the Mighty Ducks and as this mentioned Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys about
Olympics. That was so like it's like these two underdog stories happening.
So okay, real fast. If I can interrupt, I've never seen Cool Runnings. I know the story. Again, I was never a big sports movie guy, kind of thing. But yeah, when they did that, was that like a reference to the Cool Runnings? Did that happen at the same time?
It happened in the same Olympics. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which I didn't know until this movie came out too. Or when I watched it today, I was like, oh, really? It happened in the same Olympics. Oh, okay. And yeah, I mean, like I just loved it. I mean, yeah, Hugh Jackman being this like very much like it, and I loved that you get the sense of like it was and still is cocky and stuff like that, and that's why he didn't like make it. But it's also like somebody like Christopher Walken's character, which very awesome, like that just randomly Christopher Walken is in this movie, but he plays such like an important part while only being only actually being in the movie for like maybe like 10 minutes at most, but because he's like has this book and they're like learning essentially from this book.
He's the grand mentor,
Yeah, he's the grand mentor. Yeah. And like you get the sense of like even with that like kind of backstory that Hugh Jackman's character just he needed that structure, and if Christopher Walken's character didn't give up so easily on him, he would have been a great himself. And so yeah, I just love this movie, and like just the innocence of Eddie the Eagle is so great, and I feel like that's like it makes for such a pure, well, like feel good story. And like, yeah, when he went on the 90, I was very worried of like, oh man, like what's gonna happen, like how he, like I had a feeling like in the middle, once he's before he says that he's going to do the 90, that I was like, oh man, like I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen. Even when it did happen, I was like, oh my goodness, like with along with everybody else, like us as the viewers of this movie, we're feeling exactly on what I'm sure like people then felt, like especially like his parents and Hugh Jackman's character and stuff like that. I really want to learn the history of like, did he go back to
He
the next
didn't make
Olympics?
it.
He didn't.
Because they changed the rules after this to like make it harder for people like him to make it into the Olympics, which is bullshit.
Wow, that's fucked
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping
Even
there would be
then,
like a little
because
epilogue to show.
because
Yeah.
that asshole was still part of the committee, which
Yeah.
like, man, like I hated that character, like,
Yeah.
and because the only reason he got kicked out of the ski team and then kicked out of or they tried to block him was because of how he looked,
Mhm.
which you kind of get the sense of, you can only make Taron Egerton look kind of like different as much as you can, but truly, yeah, like just because he looked different, like the real guy. And yeah, it was definitely like, it was, and for that reason it was very much a different version of an underdog story, because it's like, this is somebody who wasn't an underdog, but people put barriers in front of him just so to keep him as an underdog, and that's what made it like had that added kind of thing then, compared to Cool Runnings, where there was no like change the rules for them. It was just because they just needed to like overcome that hump and become like a bobsled team, where I really liked that uh, Eddie the Eagle like story, kind of like he knew how to ski and stuff like that before doing this. So it was like a very much a kind of like a easy progression from his life as a skier to a ski long jump. Or whereas, like, with the Jamaican bobsleds, they were runners and then became a bobsled team. So yeah, but definitely loved it. Hugh Jackman's character, just like, Hugh Jackman's just awesome at doing an American accent and totally believing it, that this guy is just like roughneck, just American that doesn't give a shit. And I love the cinematography of his jump of the 90 at
Oh my
night.
god,
That
yeah.
was so epic, and I've seen a clip of it before. But that whole scene was just like awesome, and like, yeah, you get nervous even then, like, oh man, is he going to be able to do it? And he just like does it without any hesitation, no problem at all. Like, he's just so pro.
He had a
And
jacket
like,
on.
yeah, Jack, and a cigarette that he like flicked
That was
in
cool.
midair. That was cool too. Yeah, yeah. I love, like, of course Hugh Jackman is a cool guy, but like, I just love when he like gets to play like a cool guy that knows he's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you guys both enjoyed it. Like I said, this is one of my favorite movies. I remember when it came out in 2016, and it didn't really get any like attention.
Mhm.
Like it did pretty like it got good reviews. Like not didn't really get any like attention really though. It did okay at the box office. It I think it had about a $25 million budget. It made 40 something, so like a very moderate success.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it also, like, for the careers of Hugh Jackman and Taron Egerton, like, it was definitely in between some of their big movies. Like, I think
Mhm.
it was like right before like Logan for Hugh Jackman, and then like was in the middle of like Kingsman and both two Kingsmen for Taron Egerton. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of that weird, it's kind of like the Prestige, how the Prestige came between Nolan's Batman movies and, kind of gets forgotten about for that. I feel like it's the same kind of thing for this. And then, Dexter Fletcher, too, they would, actually Matthew Vaughn was the producer on this. So it was Vaughn. Yeah, Vaughn is the producer, Egerton is the star, and then Dexter Fletcher as the director would go on to do another biopic. They went and did Rocket Man all together. So that's really interesting, which is, I always kind of talk about how I don't think music biopics work as well as sports biopics. I think that one works a lot better than a lot of them. I think it still falls into a lot of the same tropes. And I actually was thinking at some point maybe like writing a thing comparing the two, just to kind of compare these two styles. But I digress because just to get back to this movie, I love this movie. Like it's such a good feel good movie. It's you have this character who is such a wholesome good character, but he's not like. He feels real at the same time. He doesn't feel like this kind of like manic pixie dream boy because he's got like his flaws and everything, but he just makes everyone around him so much better, and everybody just roots for him and is so wholesome. And through the course of the movie, you see all these people evolve, and he's almost the exact opposite of Hugh Jackman's character, like what you were talking about, Ariel, because Hugh Jackman is so talented, but like he just lacks this like the commitment and the motivation to be really great. At least at the start of the movie, and then you have Eddie, who he's really just not a natural athlete, but he just has this drive. Like he wants to be at the Olympics, he wants to be at this thing, and I really, really related to him on a lot of levels because I also love sports. Growing up, I played a lot of sports. I was okay. I like Eddie, really fucking nearsighted. Like I wear very thick glasses. But I was always really like motivated. Like when I played basketball, I usually started as an bench, but by the end of the season, just because I was always really good defender, and one season I actually made one of the few shots I ever made in a basketball game was a game-winning shot, and just kind of like always like Eddie, like worked my way up there to kind of like be a presence. And I've always been really, really into the Olympics. Like I know that they're super problematic because like the IOC, like it kind of shows in this movie, they're not exactly the IOC, but the British Olympic committee is very fucked. The IOC is really fucked, but like what Eddie talks about, and like the kind of the athletes themselves, this like spirit of just like wanting to be the best, be your best self, and achieve this great thing. And the Olympics have always kind of, to me, represented what they represent to Eddie is just being your best self, like accomplishing this great dream. And I always kind of like wanted to be an Olympian. I remember like before this movie came out, watching. Must have been like the 2010 Winter Olympics, maybe in Sochi, and watching like the ski jumps. I was like, man, I bet if I had trained from a kid, I could have maybe been in the Olympics. Like if I had born in Austria and I was like, when I was like 6 or something, So then the movie came out, I was like, oh man, like I watched it with my brother, and I was like, see, like I could. He's like, you're kind of like Eddie with that. And I was like, yeah, man, I could do it, like maybe. So like I was like upset when I saw they like changed the rules. I was like, man, I could have done it, But the IOC had to close the door behind Eddie. But yeah, I just love the positivity of it. It reminds me, I've been watching season 2 of Ted Lasso. It's the same kind of thing where he's just this, very, very just great character who kind of like is very positive, inspires everybody to be their best selves in the sports world. They do have both Eddie and Ted, though, while they're so positive, like have like a very deep side to them. So yeah, I really love this movie. I think it's one of the better sports biopics just out there. And one more thing I want to just kind of share by my own path that reminded me a lot of one of my favorite scenes in the movie is that last scene that we kind of alluded to earlier, where it's him and it's Maddie, and they're going up the lift. And it's kind of like it's kind of one of those scenes where it's like, here's the moral of the story, and he has that thing where it's like, we're like 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Like it seems like we're far away, but we're really close in the clock. Like we are not competing with these other guys. We are competing with ourselves and to be our best selves. And he's like, if I come in first, but I don't do my best, it doesn't matter. I'd rather come in last. And that was so cool. And just like you see Eddie and I really like the camera because you just kind of like see Maddie kind of like take off, and you see Eddie from like watch him from far away. It doesn't focus. It's like, this is not the focus of the shot. And it reminded me a lot of when I was in high school. I ran, I wasn't on track or anything, but because I was in theater, so I didn't really have time. But I was kind of like, all right, I think I'm pretty quick, And I wondered when every year one of the PE teachers would do this mile run thing, and I would usually get when we would do the miles every week, like maybe like I would get about a 6.5 minute mile was like my best time. And then I did this run, and it was like it was invitational, but you could just go if you wanted. So I was like, oh, I was like Eddie, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go, And I ended up coming in dead last, but I beat my own best by a minute, and that's what mattered to me. I was like, I got like a 5.5 minute mile, and I'm still like really proud of that to this day. Even though I came in dead last, it was like I pushed myself so hard to be the best that I could right there, and that's what this movie is all about. Even though I'm a very competitive person, it's not really like about being competitive with other people and trying to be better than other people. It's all about being your best self, and that's what this movie establishes, and the moral of it does such a good like job of getting across is do your best, be your best self. And yeah, that's why I just love this movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's pretty much my favorite aspect of the movie is like, like I said earlier, when I competed, I was kind of just more like, even if I ended up last or whatever, or anything, as long as I tried my hardest and I was there and I tried, like it feels good. Like it feels good even when you leave. Like I remember leaving those tournaments and I was like, hey man, like I had a good time. Like I'm not mad. I'm not upset I lost. Like I was just more like, just even winning one match, I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like I did it. I won a match, and then like, I won another one, and then I was like, oh my god, and then finally, I lost later on, but I was like, dude, that's still cool. Like it was super fun, and I think that's my favorite message of the movie is like just be your best self, and just try your best, and just do it for yourself. Like it really, you feel it in your heart. Like you're like, yeah, man, I you weren't there to impress anybody. You were like, I just want to do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I've ever had like I'm I'm trying to be better, but I am a very pessimistic person, and so I really need to get in that mindset. I think that would make me a lot better. But yeah, that's definitely like the way that life should be, lived as, like just try your best and be your best, and that's all the best that you can be in your own way without like we always get existential with these
Well, yeah, I mean
but
that's
yeah,
that's
you
the
know
beauty
what I'm
about cinema.
saying. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, like I really like am inspired by Eddie's story, and how you know it's you just have to be satisfied with yourself, and like be sure of yourself, and like Eddie is such a great person in that way of like that he doesn't care what other people think of him. He knows what he wants, and as long as he's striving to be and do that thing, then he's fine. Like he's okay. Like that's why he's like I got in, like that's all I needed to do. That's all I needed to do, like I got in, and I don't need to have the best, jump or anything like that. Like I am going to the Olympics. That's all I ever wanted, and so I really, it's kind of sad that like at first like people don't believe him, especially like when he gets into the, when he gets to Calgary, and then that one guy like fools him into drinking all those different colored shots and stuff, and he misses the opening ceremony, and like that's such a sad thing, but he doesn't take that, he just brushes that past, like like he's there for a reason, and that's what he's going to do, and I really love that about him.
I was gonna say the whole like brushing past it and all that. Like, I mean, that was a huge stick move. That like really that pissed me off. Like, I was like, bro, if I was there, I'd be like, fuck you guys up. But um, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. I think I
Sorry for
had my
derailing you
jacket
there.
on a little too long. But no, you go ahead, man.
Well, I think I was gonna say, kind of circling back to what you guys were talking about, how this is kind of like reminiscent of these great '90s sports movies that we all grew up on. Like Mighty Ducks or like Angels in the Outfield. Big Green, all these movies,
Oh,
and how
Big Green.
yeah, all right, and how they are like these really feel good movies. Like they really are. That's how this movie is described, and a lot of those movies, at least in terms of like the sports movies, have kind of gone away. You get stuff more like which I did enjoy, like King Richard, which is not a feel good movie. Um, Whereas this one, it does kind of throw back to that '90s vibe, but I feel like it is like an improvement. It's like the next step from those. Like those movies were like maybe a little bit kind of cheesy and saccharine, and they were kids movies. Whereas this, it doesn't feel saccharine, but it still manages to feel like very, very sincere. And
Mhm.
that's what I really love, is just the absolute sincerity of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like I said, like it's definitely such an which is awesome about the '90s movies that that's reminiscent of, but this is actually like true along I guess along with Cool Runnings is also true, but it's such an unorthodox like sports story. Like I haven't seen like the recent like the American Underdog one, but that's very much like orthodox, like he
Mm.
with Kurt Warner's story and stuff like that. But with this, it's like so out of left field of a story, like and I mean that's why it becomes like a great story, and like how in the movie it shows like he was getting all this publicity just because he was
Mhm.
the odd man out, or the different athlete, and that's what makes things like appealing to us, and in what especially with sports movies and stuff, and so yeah, but it was for this reason. It was for a good reason, because he's such a good person, and just like an everyman, you
Mhm.
know. Whereas like things with Cool Runnings, like they were still like highly decorated athletes, like with the running and stuff like that, and then some of them weren't the greatest, some of them were good and stuff, but with Eddie it's just like he was an everyman and a good person, so yeah.
You reminded me of my point, Ariel. What I was gonna say earlier, but I was trying to thought. That's also one of the biggest takeaways of this movie that I really liked, was that it kind of does a little of a "it's never too late" kind of thing,
Mhm.
where like yeah, like like I said, like in the movie, he's not like an athlete, but like he keeps trying and he keeps going at it, and like he didn't have all that badass training just like all the other Olympians, but that was one of my biggest takeaways, that it's like it's never too late. Like like I was like really shocked that there were times where he's like, "I'm gonna do that jump," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"What the fuck?"
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
kept thinking, I
like,
was
oh,
like,
I landed the 40, now on to the 70 and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
"Yeah, I mean, obviously, don't do that." Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's never. I would say it is a little too late for that kind of thing, but or I mean, you know what? Don't even listen to me. If you think you could do it, just be careful. But what I'm trying to say is like, I like that aspect where you could take it into anything. Where like if you could still do whatever you want to do. Like if you feel like, oh, I can't be a writer, or I can't be an artist, or I can't be a musician because I didn't start young. It that's one of the biggest things I liked about it, is that like you can still go for it. Like that, there's nothing really stopping you other than you. Like especially how the other athletes were like, well, you need to be doing the ski jump when you were 5 or 6 years old. Like you got to start that. And I was kind of like, I kind of hated that there's so many things in life that you're like, you had to have started when you're a kid, but it's like sometimes you don't know what you like that young. Even now, like I know our generation is still trying to find itself. Like we're all under all the stress, and we're all like worried about everything, and we have our dreams. And sometimes you go, damn, it's a little too late to do this or a little too late to that. But what I like about this is that it's so inspiring enough that you're like, you're gonna go, you know what, dude, it's not too late. Like I can still go out and be an artist, or I can still go out and be a musician, or whatever, an athlete, whatever. It's like it's all about how you see it, and your determination and your drive, kind of thing. Like I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but again, another big point of this movie is that at least you're trying, at least you're pushing yourself to try your best. Like if someone just picked up the guitar today, and like I'm 32, I'm almost 32, and I just decided to pick up the guitar, and I'm like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. that movie shows like you just got to push yourself and you got to try. You never know what's gonna happen, kind of thing. And hey, there's all those like success stories of people who are like, oh yeah, I started writing at 40 or 50, and I started drawing art at 60, and then started to bring up fighting games again. But one of the big tournaments a couple months ago, some people in their like 70s or 80s rolled up to a tournament and were playing one of the most frenetic and fast technical fighting games, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and everybody was cheering for them. Like it was kind of like similar to Eddie the Eagle. Like it was like everyone there's typically young, like from like their teens to like maybe early 30s, somewhere in their 40s. But it was just it was inspirational itself that people just went out. They were old and like obviously they didn't win the tournament, but they were like, hey man, we're here, we had a good time, and it actually inspired them to want to go and make their own tournament for like senior citizens. I mean, they want to include everybody, but they're like, we want people of all ages to be able to enjoy video games. And I thought that was so cool. And I feel like this movie really, damn, like it really just sticks with you with all those things. And I love that part of it. Like I love that it's so optimistic and it's so like driven. I think that's what I like about like all these like sports movies we've done, is that it's all about perseverance and like kind of like, breaking the mold and trying your hardest and just trying. I think that's the most important thing, is like going out our way to try.
Mm.
Yeah, man. That's really well said. Like I think that is what makes like sports movies, and just kind of like that's part of the reason why I love sports in general, is because things like that can just happen, like, and I think that's why you get endeared to certain people in sports, like, because I can relate to Eddie, or like, to talk about like basketball for a second, I can't relate to LeBron James or, like Kevin Love or somebody, but I can relate to maybe like Alex Caruso. Like I'm not obviously never going to be anywhere near Alex Caruso, but like he was a guy. He was in the D League. He kind of like got cut by a few teams. Then he was on the Lakers, and he's like 28, balding, just white dude, doesn't look very athletic. But then he just kind of like worked his way up and like eventually became like a starter in the finals for the Lakers. Helped them get that championship in 2020. Like now he's one of like the best players on the Bulls. So like when you see these kind of like underdogs, and that's kind of like what you were talking about earlier, American underdog, Ariel. I think that is part of the story that is maybe that is pushing that movie. Is I haven't seen it either, but how Kurt Warner, he was working in a grocery store for a while, and people can't really relate to Tom Brady, but you can relate maybe to Kurt Warner and working in a grocery store, and you're not thinking, oh, I can't, go out and become an NFL quarterback, but like if you're working in a grocery store, you see Kurt Warner go and achieve his dreams, maybe you can do that too. And the same thing with Eddie, he's like working, when he got the call like to go to the Olympics, he's working as a plasterer, he's like kind of giving up on his dream, but it's never too late, like you said, Alan.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, definitely.
The one thing.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Ariel.
Oh no, just for me, it's definitely a great feel-good movie that's not cheesy or anything like that. It's definitely like, if you just want a little pick-me-up in your life and a reminder of like, you could do it, you kind of thing, definitely give this movie a check, check it out, and just, like once again, awesome performances from Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if you are going through, a tough time, like so many people have been these past 2 years, this is a good movie to just put on and feel good, There's so many, I think that's why Paddington 2 is so popular, it's just because of the positivity of it, and I think it's the same case with this one,
What is up with that movie?
I haven't seen
I don't know.
it.
It's on my list. I need to watch it, but like people fucking love that movie, and I think it's the same thing. I think it's just like the positivity of this character and like the impact they have in the world. And that's, I'm probably gonna watch it pretty soon. That's why Ted Lasso is so popular. That's why I think a lot of people like Captain America. He can do this all day. But one other random stray thing is I thought it was a really cool moment. Did you guys notice that they actually put the real footage from the 88 Olympics
that was
awesome. Where
Yeah.
they like, it's the guys like, you've flown like eagles, and you can kind of tell that's not really Taron Egerton. You can tell it's the real guy.
Oh yeah.
Because like as much as like Ariel, you said like Taron Egerton, you know, he's a handsome dude. You can kind of, it's like Lars and the Real Girl, where you see you're like, that's still Gosling, you're like, that's still Taron Egerton. But he's so transformative with his like facial expressions and his like the way he talks and just like the way he kind of carries himself. You forget for a second that like this is like one of the most handsome dudes ever. That he does seem like just kind of this like big geek, you know. And so
Yeah.
like that's a great performance when you can like do that. But yeah, I love the movie, and I don't know. Is anything? Yeah, any last thoughts before I wrap it up here, guys?
I mean, I guess what's what's your guys' like go to like feel good movie? Like what other than
How
this
about
one?
yeah, go to feel good movie and also go to sports movie like this, you know, kind of thing. So, for me, oh my goodness, a go-to feel-good movie. Dang, that I would have to think about that, but for my go-to like sports movie like this, I like definitely The Big Green
Mm.
is one of my favorites. Um, I love that movie, and I forgot that. Oh yeah, it's on Disney Plus now, so I really need to check that out again. Angels in the Outfield's good too. Mighty Ducks 2 is my favorite Mighty Ducks, so that for that one. But yeah, I would have to think about Feel Good. Feel Good, Feel Good. I do
Midsummer.
like Chud.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, shut up.
Midsummer. Yeah, that's mine. You called
Whiplash.
Yeah, like it's a family
Hereditary.
thing, but we usually tend to for Christmas movies as our feel good movies. So While You Were Sleeping is a classic for us, and then also like You've Got Mail is also a classic feel good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was just kind of like looking at my letterbox real quick, seeing if I could see anything. One that I think is a good one for me is Tangled. I fucking love Tangled. Like
Mhm.
that's a 5 banger for like 5-star movie for me. Like that movie is just so, you know, you love Rapunzel and just like you love to see her get away from her gaslighting mom and just I don't know. Like that movie it's peak Disney for me. Like I can watch Tangled whenever. You know, another one, and this is a sports movie and a feel good movie. It's the first movie we ever covered, Speed Racer. Like Speed is like, you know, it's
Yeah.
another one of those stories about just like overcoming all these obstacles and just knowing that you can be the best. And you know, I can like I haven't watched it in a minute, but I really want to kind of go back and rewatch Speed Racer. I've seen it so many times, but I never get tired of it. I don't know. How about you, Alan?
Sports movies. I
I
Yeah,
know
like I said,
you.
I don't
Or
have a
just
lot. I
feel
mean,
good. What's your feel good movie? You know,
feel
doesn't have to
good.
be sports.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Because the funny part is like a lot of the movies that like are feel good movies for me. I feel like they're a little bit more like comfort movies, so they make
Mhm.
me feel better. So, so it's like Scream or like Clerks. Like those make me feel better. I guess. Like I think probably Clerks just because like it's very relatable. I guess for me, like I worked at we've all worked in customer service, and I worked in it for a very long time. So sometimes I'll just like pop in Clerks, and I think I just like the dialogue a lot, and it's just kind of like I think I like just talking and hanging out, just talking about nerdy shit all the time. So I think seeing that on screen kind of makes me like feel good and just I don't know. It's like some aspects of it are like super real, like just weird customers and funny antics that they do, and like yeah, I guess yeah, I think Clerks, probably Clerks.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm gonna keep introducing you to more good sports movies, Alan. So we'll get you. We'll get you one.
Would Kung Fu be considered a sports movie? I think Kung Fu, if it is Kung Fu Hustle, Kung Fu Hustle
Oh,
is a
okay.
good.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, technically, yeah,
I never saw that one.
fighting.
Yeah, that would count.
Oh,
I
it's
never saw
fucking
that.
dope.
It's amazing.
I saw
Kung
the
Fu
It's a
other
dope
Hustle
ass
is
one
movie.
great.
from around the same time. The other like kung fu parody movie, Kung Pao, which is
Oh
so
no,
dope.
Oh
Kung
no,
Fu
not that
Hustle.
one. Nah,
Kung Fu Hustle is
Okay.
amazing.
no,
All
Kung
right,
Fu
I need to
Hustle's
check it
good
out.
shit.
I need to check it
maybe
out.
we'll put that on your list of you've never seen, because that would
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
that's a great one.
yeah.
I'd be
Kung
down.
Fu
I'd be
Hustle.
down. All right. Well, everybody out there, thank you guys for listening. On whatever app you are on, we would love it if you guys could just tell a friend or give us 5 stars. There's a rating now system on Spotify. So if you want to give us 5 stars on Spotify, it's a brand new system. So we got to get some ratings there since it just started. That would help the show get noticed a lot. But check us out on all our socials, Undercast Company, wherever you want to look us up. We also got a couple other podcasts. I've got one whenever there's a new Marvel movie called Infinity Stones and Dragon Bones, and Ariel has one on the 1st of every month. So it would have just come out recently from when we're releasing this. That's called You've Never Seen, the question mark and exclamation point. So yeah, check both of those out. And enjoy the Winter Olympics, everybody.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking out the. It's not called long jump. What is it called? The ski jump?
Ski jump, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely be checking out.
It's super interesting. Although, one thing, I was going to say something earlier. I love the score of this movie, and I love the little, like, every time they're, like, going down the slope, and I'm just like, now whenever I watch the Olympics and I see them, like, do it, I'm just going to hear that in my head, the little, like, ramp up the musical score.
Yeah, just a follow. Sorry, I remembered one thing. I want the album to this movie. Like, I really wonder if it's on vinyl, because this is like full out like awesome 80s music.
Yeah, it's very much that vibe.
All right,
I feel like you probably go on Spotify and like I'm sure somebody made a playlist.
I know.
Of it,
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But on vinyl would be
vinyl
really cool
too. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And then one more. If anybody out there wants to, I might write a piece for Medium or something. If anybody wants to see me compare this and Rocket Man, just to kind of compare music biopics to sports biopics, let me know. Like, send us an email or something under castcone@gmail.com, or just write us in a comment somewhere, because I might do that if people want to see it. So let me know either way.
Yeah.
And I'll see you guys in another way. Oh yeah, go ahead.
With that, thanks for being amazing. Yeah.
Take it easy, everybody.